exactly would you write it? So just could you elaborate on that?
Okay. So actually, so list of data we are getting from DB, okay, whatever it is there, like REST call something. So after we are getting the data, right? So we want to do the filter on top of a particular condition. So we need to do the like stream you need to use, okay, like list dot stream, okay. On top of that, so all the records we are converting to the stream. Then we need to make it as a filter, okay. Filter function is there. Inside the filter, so whatever the data is coming, like for example you are taking as a employee class, okay, employee class having some age something is there, amount is something is there, okay. If you want to filter more than amount is greater than 5,000 something is there, so that situation like employee, okay, each employee like filter condition inside each employee, okay. So lambda you can use, and based on employee dot get salary is greater than 5,000 something, okay. Then you need to collect all the information that collect dot to list. Then based on that filter condition, we will get the remaining all the list whatever we filter.
Okay, awesome. And so that's about it with functional programming. So what are the major collections that you've used so far? And what kind of operations? Say you're saying that you use streams with respect to list, okay? So if you're having a map, okay, and if you want to use a stream or a parallel stream, how would you go about? And can you also let me know on what is the difference between a stream and a parallel stream?
Okay. The stream actually, if you want to particular data is there, right? Okay. For example, 1,000 records are there. Okay. If I want to read the data, okay, using the stream, for example, it will take 2 minutes of time. Okay. So if you're using parallel time, right, because there is once you are doing the read operation, okay, there is no issue on while reading the transaction. That's why we can go with parallel processing. If you are writing the data, right, so that situation you need to handle multi-threading. Okay, otherwise what happened, the same data, maybe there is a chance we writing in or double 2 times more than 1 time like that will come.
Okay,
So
so
parallel
anything, sorry to
yeah.
interrupt you. So anything to do with the cores in your machine? Anything related to how many cores can be used, or so could you explain on those lines? So if it's a parallel stream, so if you want to use all of the cores in your machine, whether would you go with a stream or a parallel stream?
Yeah, if multiple cores already then I can go with parallel stream, right?
Okay. So how will you explain the difference? So I'm not understanding the difference of using a stream and a parallel stream.
Okay, for you as you told, right? So there is a multiple cores are there. Okay, so stream if you're working on one core only, if your core it is accessing means it will take some time consuming, right? Okay, a parallel it will work on a multiple cores. Okay, that's why more performance will come on.
Okay, so if you're having 8 cores in your machine, so all of that can be used using a parallel stream, right?
Exactly. That's what.
Okay. Shubhani, you want to jump in?
Yeah, Ashwin. Venkatesh, I have one question here. So suppose you're using a parallel stream for reading a list, and now inside that you have to write something to another list, and you're using parallel stream for this case. So, will there be any consideration while writing to the second list using parallel stream?
Yeah, actually, if you are trying to modify anything in between of the list, right? So you will get to concurrent modification section, right?
Okay. So what
Yeah,
can you do? What can you do in this case?
Yeah, you can go for if you want to go with the list, right? So you can use already by default concurrent modification section already handled, right? So copy and write our list class is there. You can use that one, and based on that, you want to get to concurrent modification section. If that is your situation. If there is in map, then you can go with the concurrent hash map.
Okay. All right. So I also want to cover multi-threading concepts. So what's the difference between callable and runnable interfaces? Hello.
Yeah. A runnable interface is there, right? That is an interface. So okay, if you want to implement as a multi-threading, okay, if implement runnable interface, there is a chance of extend another class also is there. Okay, that is runnable interface.
Have you heard of Callable? Future classes.
Yeah, Callable I heard, but I haven't implemented.
Okay. All right. So have you worked with a little bit of multi-threading? Like, how do you, what are the different ways of creating multiple threads?
Yeah, there are two ways are there. You can extend the thread class or implement runnable interface. Okay. So if you extend the class, okay, in future, if you want to do any extend another class, then we can't able to do. So that's why better approach we can go with implement runnable interface. Okay. If there is a chance of future, if you want to implement anything further, you can able to implement. So that is the advantage of implement runnable interface.
Okay. Any other like thread pool? Have you heard how to create?
Yeah, Threadful. Yeah, I have knowledge on that one. So that executor class is there, right? So multiple thread actually, why we need to go for that executors and all, right? So for example, if you have multiple threads, like 100 classes we need to create, okay? So that situation we can't able to like create each and every thread, right? So it will waste of the code. So because of that one, we are implementing as a executor class on that one. Then we can make it as all threads in the one pool. Okay, for example, 100 threads we want to do. Memory related, if you want to get in feature in production, okay, if you want to run more transaction processing, so those kind of issues you can eliminate if you create as a thread pool mechanism executor.
Okay. All right. So suppose like you are using executor service and do a task after all the tasks are finished. So what will be your approach?
Shubhani, we lost you in the middle.
So a question is like you are using executor service, okay? So in executor service, like there will be multiple threads doing some task. So now you want to do something after all the tasks are completed.
Okay.
So how will you do this? Like you, there is a task in the main thread that you want to do only after all the threads that you have created using executor service are finished.
Nothing else.
Fine. Okay, we can move on to some different topic. If you have not
Okay.
much worked on multi-threading, that's okay. Can we? Do you have any other questions on core Java, particularly Ashwin, or we can move to Spring and then maybe come back again?
Yeah, maybe like so, Venkat.
Yeah.
With respect to the projects that you worked on, so what features of since we are going to go into Spring Boot or the Spring framework for your information, so what kind of features have you used and what are you comfortable on? Say, like, have you worked with microservices?
Yes, Ashwin, we have worked on microservices. Yes.
Okay, so for a start, can you please explain us about what is the need for a microservice and why exactly it is needed and the difference with respect to a monolith?
Okay. See, the monolithic application actually, so all the business logic is put it into one place. Okay. And if you want to do any modification inside the code, okay, in single piece also. So you want to entire application, you want to scale up and scale down. Okay. So this is one of the disadvantage. Along with that, so entire all the classes and packaging, everything is in single component, right? So it will memory point of view, it will consuming huge. Okay, the performance will become slow. Okay, this is the problems in one more thing actually. So if you want to implement any other language, you can't able to implement in monolithic application. Okay. So likewise, if you're coming to the microservice, right? Whatever I told, Along a point because actually so that whatever monolithic application we segregate into individual components. Okay, that is nothing but a microservices. Okay, each service. So the services which we have implemented, you can able to different teams you can able to do. Okay, and different languages also you can able to implement. And if you want to do any of the application changes, okay, that particular application will get impact. Like you can able to do it as a circuit breaker design pattern you can implement. And for example, if you want to do, I have 10 microservices. Okay, so there is an issue with one microservices. Okay, if you make it as a circuit breaker design pattern mechanism, you can write fallback method on restricts command. Then that particular service by default it won't to run in business logic inside the account. Okay?
So you worked with Hystrix, right?
Yes, yes.
So before we go into those details, so because like we just touched microservices, so what are the things that you've used in your project? Say, can you explain about the design of a microservice in your project so that we can go with respect to that?
Okay. So actually we have around 20 services are there. Okay, so few components we are running in on-prem and few components we are running in AWS. Okay, so actually whatever the request is coming from the client, right? So based on the request type, okay, so it will come into the first API gateway. Okay, inside the API gateway we already configured like Eureka services. Okay, based on the URL, whatever coming the request, then we are segregated into particular service.
Okay. So can you please explain a bit more? So like what features you use now? Say like what is the Eureka service, or how will you define what is Eureka and what is the need for it? And also about an API gateway. So have you used API gateway in your project?
Yeah, API gateway we have implemented, right?
Okay, and also have you used security, or have you handled security? So these three things in a flow would be great.
Yeah. So actually in Eureka server is nothing but where all the client URLs are there, right? So whenever you run for example, I have told, right, 20 services I have. So all the services we have registered into one place. Okay, that is Eureka server. Okay. So and actually by default port they are assigning and forwarded our request into particular services. Okay. In future, if you want to do any of port numbers, all those things, right? So you don't need to worry about inside our code. No need to change. It will taken care by our Eureka server. So that is nothing but Eureka client.
So you're defining all your services there. So
yes.
One quick question here. So how do you communicate between the services within your application?
So services between to our application.
Say if you want to call, say if you have two services in your application that say are registered in your Eureka server, and if you want to call service B from service A, how would you go about doing that?
Okay, that Fin client is there, right? So we can use Fin client through that microservice communication will happen. I have one is there. That is the REST template through also we are calling.
Great. Okay. Please proceed. About API gateway. So now I had asked about API gateway.
Okay. The API gateway is nothing but tool, right? So whenever client request is coming from outside of the client or outside of the request, so based on that request type, okay. For example, 20 services are there, okay. If you are giving as a type of parameter A, then API gateway will assume that and redirect to our Eureka server, and based on that request, we will send into particular service. And a load balancer.
Okay. So now coming to a little bit of code configurations. So how will you enable an Eureka server, or how will you make sure that a particular service is going to handle that?
Yeah. Actually, we have in Spring Boot annotation iterative enable Eureka server. So like that, if annotation you can give and you can register with Eureka server. Okay. And one more thing, if you want to client is there, right? So we have around 20 services. So we want to register with Eureka server. So at the rate of enable Eureka client. Okay. If you use that annotation, along with that, Eureka server related configuration you need to map in our application.yml or application.properties. You need to make it that. Then after whatever you have given in our client, right? So it will register into Eureka servers.
Okay. So Shubhani, you want to jump in? I'm pretty much.
So you have used Spring Boot, right? What all annotations have you used?
Yeah, Spring Boot actually mostly we are using stereotype annotations like configuration, okay, component and service, and we are actually in our application we are using JP repository. So repository, okay. So these kind of is there, and at the rate of REST controller, and after we are passing the request, right? So at the rate of request body, okay, and we need to annotate and a request param and a path variable. Okay, if you want to send in a URL, right, some data, so you can use a path variable, okay. And for example, we have one interface, okay, so multiple classes are implemented, so that situation you can use a qualifier, okay? And yeah, primary annotation is there, and bean is there. Okay.
Any caching annotations you have used?
In caching, some enable caching like that is there, but I am not much in that. Yeah.
Okay. So what is transient? At the rate transient have used with respect to
transient actually.
So what are the different bean scopes?
So if you want to ignore
by default,
any variables, you can use transient.
There, okay, you
so that's the answer.
So each and every request already
so in JPA, you can ignore
default scope singleton will create that instance will be what, okay.
Okay. So what is the concept of singleton?
Singleton actually, so one instance it will already created and make it into cache, okay. So whenever we make the request, right, so that same instance will return again.
Okay. And any other bean scope? If you want to define, if you don't want a single instance, you want separate instances for every.
Yeah, prototype you can use.
Okay.
So each and every request it will create a new bean and it will assign per request.
So for communication between two services, you have used only REST APIs, or like have you worked with the messaging kind of structure also anywhere?
Yeah, Kafka actually in our application they implemented Kafka also is there.
Okay, great. All right. Some basics of Kafka are you familiar with, or like how much will you rate yourself in Kafka?
I can give 2 out of 5 because not much I know on that, but I know how it's working on our application because a few issues are coming, right? So that situation we need to handle, fix some issues. So those kind of things I work on.
Okay. Any basics you know about Kafka? What are the basics in that Kafka setup? Like what are the basic keywords, concepts?
Yeah, consumer and producer is there, right? So yeah, producer will send data to broker server. Okay, inside the broker server, a couple of topics will be there, and each topic will have multiple partitions will be there. Okay, so like nothing but is a data processing of the data stream. Okay, then after that it will send it to producer will send to server, and server will based on that one consumer will consume that requests. Okay, so there is an ID will be there, offset ID will be there. So each index it will have one ID uniquely it will generate.
Okay. So like what is the basic use of Kafka over other messaging queues, like, so do you know about that?
Yeah, actually earlier I was working with MQ. Okay.
Okay.
So MQ and while we are